today I have a short little video. It's more of a sort of PSA, I guess, but something that I've come across that I hope you don't come across, and I want to sort of warn you about it so that you can hopefully avoid the same mistake I made. A friend of mine, I gave him one of my old bikes, and I told him, hey man, you really should convert it to tubeless, because it's a mountain bike, and running tubes on a mountain bike are a thing of the past. It's really nice to run low pressures, to not worry about pinch flats. So I told him, let's convert it to tubeless. So he gave me the bike back, and I converted the rims to tubeless. Now it's an older bike, 26-inch rims. They aren't meant to be tubeless, but I was able to get them to seal up, and they worked just fine for about 2 years, right? No problems whatsoever. They held their pressure. You could run relatively low pressures, no problem. There was no burping. Everything felt great. He rides it for 2 years. Everything's totally fine, right? We go on some pretty, I wouldn't say gnarly, but, some trails that are definitely challenging for an older 26-inch cross-country style bike, and it does just fine. Tires roll just fine. Pressures are nice. No burping. We're all good to go, right? 2 years later, he hits me up and he goes, hey man, I broke a spoke. So I say, okay, well, broken spokes happen. So I take the bike back, take the wheel off, I take a look at it, and the spoke is actually fine, but the nipple is broken, right where the spoke meets the rim. So I said, that's a little strange, but happens. So I throw on a new nipple, torque that all up, make sure the wheel is perfectly, well, first of all, true, and then I check the spoke tension on everything. Everything looks good, give it back to him. A few more weeks pass, he goes, hey man, I broke another spoke. I'm like, man, what is this guy doing? Like, where is he riding this bike? So I take the wheel back again, I check it again, another nipple is broken, a different one this time. So I'm like, all right, whatever, another nipple, put it on. Give it back to him, a few months pass, everything's fine. Hey man, I broke a spoke. Man, what is going on, right? So I start doing some digging. Turns out, and here's sort of the crux of the issue, is that Stan's sealant, okay? Stan's original sealant, I don't know if it has the same issue with the race sealant, but the original sealant, the kind of OG NoTubes, right? Stan's NoTubes, apparently has ammonia in it. And ammonia is corrosive to aluminum over time. Now, I thought I did a pretty good job installing the rim tape on the rim, and it still looks pretty good today, but it is possible that some of it sort of crept under the rim tape into the spoke holes, onto the nipples, and over time it corrodes them, and then you get any sort of pressure on them, and then they just start to break. So all these nipples just started breaking left and right, and eventually I realized, as I did more research, it was the sealant. The sealant was what was corroding the nipples and eventually causing them to break. And I did some more research online, and a lot of people have had this problem. I wish I'd known about it earlier, but unfortunately, here we are. Basically, the quick sort of PSA for you guys is that if you're using Stan's original sealant with rims that have aluminum nipples, you may want to be careful. You may want to switch sealant, maybe remove the rim tape, give everything a nice clean, try to see how the nipples look, see if there's any sort of corrosion on them. You may want to replace your nipples if you've been running it for a while, but a lot of people have had this experience. I unfortunately had the same experience as well too, and it's something that hopefully you can avoid. Today, I've got the wheel right behind me here. I'm actually going to be replacing all the nipples, I'm going to replace the rim tape, and I'm actually going to be using different sealant. That's my information for you guys today. Stan's NoTubes. It works fine as a sealant, but if you have aluminum nipples, which a lot of wheels do nowadays, you may want to reconsider and use something that has synthetic latex, which is most other sealants. If you want a recommendation, the two I've had the most luck with recently are Muck-Off sealant. This one won a sort of third-party shootout in terms of actual sealing ability. It has kind of chunks in it. I don't know if you can sort of see that in here. There we go. So I don't know if you can see that, but it does look a little chunkier than other sort of types of sealant. It almost looks like it has like little bits of rubber or something in there, but this does seal up pretty quick. It is rather expensive. So this is 1 liter. I think I paid like $33 for this. So a little bit on the pricey side. This is Cream 2 from Trucker Co. And this has been my go-to because it is much cheaper. This 1 liter, I could double check, I believe it was about 20 bucks, if I'm not mistaken, 22, maybe 22.99, something like that, but about 10 bucks cheaper per liter than that one. It works really well. It's much more liquid than that one, but everything, it seals up just fine. It's easier to inject into the tires without removing the actual tire, so I do like that. And it's a good price. It works well, it's a good price. If you order it from Trucker Co., they'll give you a free injector as well too, which is really just a syringe, but it is nice to have in order to make your, tubeless application a little bit smoother. And they sell it in a variety of different sizes. This is the 1 liter. I'm not sure if there's a smaller one, but I know you can buy a 1 gallon, which is about 4 point something liters. And that's, you know, that's a little bit more cost effective. And if you have a lot of bikes or work on a lot of bikes, that might be a good purchase. I still go with the 1 liters because I don't want them to dry out, but I've never actually had any trouble with these drying out. This is about 2 years old and still liquid, still works just fine. I just bought a new one because this is running out. I like their products. Not sponsored, but you know, they work well for me. So this is what I recommend, or the Muck Off one. But the Stands one, like I said, it works fine as a sealant. I would just be careful of what combination you use it with. One final thing that you might be wondering about, which I feel like someone might ask in the comments down below, will this impact aluminum rims? Well, I guess potentially. However, most aluminum rims, if not all of them, are anodized, right? And the anodization process should basically give you an extra layer of protection. And it doesn't seem like anyone online has had issues with the sealant impacting the rims. It's more of the nipples, which are basically unanodized aluminum, at least the bare aluminum ones. If they're anodized, right, colored, you might be okay, but I would probably just recommend using a different sealant altogether and avoiding this problem completely. Anyways, that's a quick video for you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and replace all the nipples on this rim now and get it back to my friend so he can keep riding. Okay, so here we are over at the bench, and as you can sort of see here, the sealant did work its way behind the rim tape in certain places. Some places more than others, but here you got quite a bit of that sort of sealant boogers, you know, coming out. And these nipples, some of them look okay. Like this one looks okay. I think this might have been one I installed new. I'm not sure. But this one, as you can sort of see, the head is just sort of like starting to slowly, like almost corrode away, melt away kind of, right? The actual like slotted part is getting smaller and smaller. The ones that are cleaner, like this one, right? This one looks pretty good, right? You can still see a pretty like defined kind of cutout here, you can sort of see. But like I said, this one, I don't know if you can see that, it's kind of like flattened out now at the top. So I have to imagine that is the sealant sort of corroding it over time. The rim itself looks fine, like even the kind of exposed areas here, you know, they are kind of gooped up, but I don't foresee any problems with the rims. So I'm just gonna sort of clean up all the kind of goop and boogers out of here. But yeah, the nipples really just are not doing well with the sealant here. This one, as you can see, this one is broken already. It just hasn't come out yet, but the top is broken. So it's probably loose somewhere in the rim. I'm gonna have to actually go and get that out. But you can see here the basically shoulder of the nipple, or the head, whatever you want to call it, has already corroded off and broken off. This one is pretty much flat now. This one that I installed new still looks okay. But yeah, so this is a real problem, something you should be aware of. All right, so I've got this wheel fully trued up. All the nipples have been replaced, and it is straight as an arrow now, which is nice. But I want to do a little bit of a sort of recap on the results of the problem I was talking about. So of the 32 spoke nipple combos, we had, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 in which the head was corroded to the point that I could not use my nipple driver, which sort of turns them in from the back, right? So this one, this is not even the worst one, but as you can sort of see here, the nipple head is just completely sort of like corroded away. There's no real kind of cutout anymore to fit, you know, a screwdriver or a nipple driver into here. And this is where they start to fail, right? This starts to corrode, eventually gets weak around the shoulder here, and then they just snap. Speaking of which, I did have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that did actually snap, right? So as you can see here, you have the remaining part of the nipple right here, and then the head of it, which broke off, right? And so these eventually they get weak, and then they just snap off, and then, you know, it looks like a broken spoke, but it's not actually. It's the nipples that have been corroded, and they snap, right? Now, brand new nipples, these are actually brass, right? So these should not have the same problem as the aluminum ones because brass is not going to be impacted by the ammonia as much. But either way, we're not going to run stands on these wheels anymore, and so hopefully problem solved forever. But just like I said, quick little PSA, and it's a real problem, you know, unfortunately. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure if this impacts anodized aluminum nipples as well. You know, ones that are anodized with different colors, those might be more resistant. These were just bare aluminum, which obviously makes them less corrosion resistant. But, you know, like I said, it's a real problem, and hopefully this video will help someone avoid this problem in the future.